Olivier Blanchard, Economic Counsellor of the IMF. How have the events of the summer changed your global outlook?
Well, they surely have changed the global outlook for the worse. There were two separate developments. The first one is that we learned that growth had slowed down, even in the first half, which we had not realized it was happening. So it was one very bad piece of news. And then investors got very worried about the interactions between the financial sector and the budget. And so this started in Greece, but very quickly people started to have worries about other countries, Italy, Spain, and so on. And it became quite bad in the first half of August. So each of these two pieces of news would have been bad on its own, but the combination of both is what leads us to worry quite a bit. So we, like everybody else, have revised our forecast down.
How do you see the situation in Europe evolving?
So the plan of Europe is to cut this Gordian knot of the interaction, the bad interactions between financial and fiscal issues. So the first stage is clearly to make sure that from a fiscal point of view, things are okay, which means that countries have in place a credible medium-term plan. That's the first thing. But one has to be realistic. It's clear that some countries will basically have a hard time making it on their own. These are the program countries. And then the other thing is, even if the programs are credible, it's going to take a while for markets to actually realize it. And during that time, it's important that banks have sufficient capital buffers, so that they are ready if there is a flare-up or something like this.
Do you see the U.S. headed back into recession?
So we don't expect the U.S. To go into recession. Our baseline has positive, low growth, but positive growth. I think the number for 2012 is 1.8%. But that's under some assumptions. It's basically under the assumption that there is no major flare-up in financial markets. And that in turn, that requires that the policies which are going to avoid these flare-ups are in place. If they are not, then clearly things could be worse.
Should emerging economies still be worried about overheating?
Yes and no. In some emerging market economies, there was overheating, or they were on the verge of overheating, and so they clearly have to avoid it. At the same time, looking forward, it may be that the economic environment is going to be much worse, the world economic environment, in which case they have to be ready to shift regime and actually make sure that they expand domestic demand. So for the moment, yes, avoid overheating where it's there, but be ready to change tactics.
Do you see any progress toward global rebalancing?
I think the short answer is not much. There has been, if you look at the last 3 years, there has been a decrease in global imbalances. Deficit countries have smaller deficits and surplus countries typically have smaller surpluses, but it's very much the result of the recession itself. It's a cyclical adjustment. And if we look forward from now to a few years from now, what we see actually is an increase in global imbalances again. Not quite back to where we were before the crisis, but going in the wrong direction. So the short of it is there has been some rebalancing, but not of a great kind. And looking forward, it doesn't look too good.
Olivier Blanchard, thank you.
Thank you.